How can a pawn's movement lead to stalemate in chess? Imagine a game where a simple pawn can turn the tide and even cause a draw. That might sound surprising, but pawns can play a big role in ending a game in a stalemate. A stalemate happens when the player to move has no legal moves left, and their king is not in check. This means the game ends in a draw, even if one side seems to be losing. Pawns, though small and often overlooked, can block the opponent's king completely. When a pawn moves, it can sometimes trap the king on the edge of the board or in a corner, leaving no squares to escape to. If the king has no legal moves and no other pieces can move, the game is over by stalemate. A common example is the king and pawn versus king endgame. If the defending king is pushed into a corner and the attacking king is right behind its pawn, advancing the pawn to the last rank can result in stalemate. This is because the defending king has nowhere to go, and the attacking side cannot move without causing check. The pawn cannot promote without causing the stalemate, so the game ends in a draw. Another scenario involves a pawn on the A file or H file, called a rook pawn. If the defending king is in the corner opposite the pawn's promotion square, pushing the pawn forward too quickly can trap the king. If the king cannot move and no other pieces can help, stalemate occurs. This is a common way to force a draw when one side has less material or fewer options. In more complicated positions, a chain of pawns can block all escape routes for the opponent's king. If the pawns are arranged so that the king cannot move and no other pieces can help, the game ends in a stalemate. This often happens in endgames where players try to avoid losing by carefully maneuvering their pawns and king. Understanding how pawn moves can lead to stalemate is important for both attacking and defending. Sometimes, even when you are behind in material, you can use pawn moves to create a situation where your opponent cannot move at all. This is a smart way to save a game or force a draw. So, even the smallest piece on the board can have a big impact, especially when it comes to ending a game in a stalemate.